righty. Well, good morning, everybody. It is 11:30. I'm getting ready to get up, and we're going to start our day very shortly. There's Rocky. Hello, Rocky. Can we come? I guess I can't enlarge the picture when I've got the screen pointing this way. I'm learning stuff all the time about this phone. I'm still learning how to use it. I am. I've had it now for a long time, but I'm still learning how to use it. Um, yeah. It survived its dunk into the piss pot that time anyway. I wondered if it was going to last very long after I got it dried out, but it did. Um, so far, it's holding up pretty well, so I'm grateful for that. Really didn't want to be in a position of having to buy another new phone, so I'm very grateful for that. Pardon me. My goodness. It's a little cool in here, but I've got the heat on and it's taking the edge off it nicely. It's not too bad, really. It's okay. Plus, when you live this way, you develop more of a tolerance, I find, for cold. You're kind of used to being cold all the time, so it doesn't bother you the same as it would if you were used to living in a house with central heating and being warm. Um, toughens you up, I suppose. If you look at the old pioneers, they were pretty tough, and they were exposed to all sorts of extremes, you know. So, got to give them credit anyway, I guess. And I'm getting a small taste, just a very small taste of what it was like for them. Nowhere near to what they went through, but more close to what they went through than what people typically go through now, is all. I'm getting just a very small taste of it. I'm getting maybe a 2% taste of the hardships that those people faced. But the average person these days gets maybe a half of a percentage point of a taste of it. So, I mean, it does give me a bit of an edge, I suppose. What's happened isn't entirely bad in my case. It's put me in a better position to survive what's coming, too, because there's some bad stuff coming. What we've already been through is nothing. As I said in a previous video this morning, we are at war, and the globalist people, they're actually waging war with us. I was just sitting here thinking, the whole COVID thing that we went through, what that actually was, it was warfare. That's what that was. What we went through there, that was warfare. That was a chemical and biological warfare, and it was also psychological warfare. And it was a form of spiritual warfare as well, because it really isn't a flesh and blood kind of a thing. The Bible tells us that we're not really in a flesh and blood war. What we're in is a spiritual war. And anyway, if you look at COVID, they unleashed a biological agent on us. That's the first thing they did. The biological agent turned out not to be what they said it was. They exaggerated it and made it seem even worse than it actually was. Not that it was good. It made a lot of people sick, killed some people. The flu kills some people every year too, though. What they did, though, is they exaggerated the numbers. They attributed deaths to COVID that weren't COVID deaths. People dying in car accidents, and people getting murdered, and people dying from other causes, other diseases, dying from cancer or other respiratory problems or whatever. They put it down as COVID. So they exaggerated the numbers, made it seem far worse than it was. And then that was part of the psychological warfare. Even the forced masking was part of the psychological warfare. And the social distancing and not allowing people to see their friends and their families. And, keeping people from visiting their dying loved ones and from attending funerals for their deceased loved ones and all that. All the things that we do in order to get closure and in order to make peace with the reality that we live with in this world, which, is a pretty harsh reality, really. When we lose loved ones, when we lose friends, how we all come together and we devote a couple days anyway just to remembering that person and just coming together to grieve together, to tell stories about our various interactions with that person and to just be together and in that common bond that we have of the connection with that person, whoever that is, whether it be a friend or a loved one or whatever. And anyway, here's the thing. They took that away from us. They took what we have built up over thousands of years as a normal way of dealing with grief away from us. They took our ability to celebrate away from us, our ability to celebrate holidays together, our ability to celebrate weddings and things like that. All that, they took that away from us. They isolated us. That's all a form of psychological warfare. If you're in prison and you don't follow the rules of the institution, if you're somebody who's constantly flouting the authorities within the institution and breaking the rules, you're doing things that are forbidden to do when you're an inmate or a prisoner or a resident of the institution. What do? They put you into solitary confinement. That's what they do. They put you in a little room by yourself, and they pass you some food for a slot in a tray a couple times a day, on a tray for a slot a couple times a day. And that's it. That's what you've got. That's what they do to you. Well, okay, Rocky, get off me, sweetie, get off me. He's heavy. That's what they do. That's what they did to us, effectively. They put us in isolation. That psychological warfare, it's the same tactic that's used within the jail or the prison to control those who aren't abiding by the rules. If you can't abide by the rules, we'll put you somewhere where you're not around other people, where you have basically no stimulation of any kind, where you'll be subjected to sensory deprivation and social isolation. This is what they do. Nobody to talk to, nothing to look at, no television to watch, no window to look out, whatever, no yard to go to, no yard to get out maybe and get a little bit of sun and fresh air. None of that for you, because you don't follow the rules. And you're going to stay here until you learn to follow the rules. You see, that's what they did to us. It was sensory deprivation. It was social isolation, psychological warfare. That's what it was. Then they come up with these shots. The shots are biological and chemical warfare. We got people dropping dead because of these shots. Connected it to your employment. You can't work anymore. You're going to lose your career if you don't do this. If you don't take this poison, you will take your career away from you. See, all of that, warfare. That's all warfare. So basically, through these past few years, we have been subjected to biological, chemical, spiritual, and a whole bunch of other kinds of warfare. We've been messed with in so many ways. And they're now regrouping. They're getting ready to come at us again. They've already told us they're coming at us again soon. It's going to be avian flu or monkeypox or something. I don't know if they've settled on exactly what it's going to be, but it's going to be something. And they're going to come at us again. And, it's going to be all the same bullshit over again. The difference is now we don't have any excuse not to know. We've already been through this, we know. And if we don't know, it's our own fault. We got nobody to blame but ourselves. See, the first one was just a dry run. They knew they could only go so far, and so it was a dry run. And once more and more people started to rebel, once more and more people started to call bullshit, excuse me, once more and more people did that, then, I'm having trouble breathing. My lungs aren't great. But once more and more people called bullshit and started to rebel, then they backed off. But they're not finished. That first one was just an experiment. It was just a dry run. They're not finished. They're coming back at us again. This war is not over. And yeah, we're traumatized. Just like anybody that's been through a war will be traumatized. But a lot of people don't recognize it because they don't recognize what happened as a war. They don't understand that what they were subjected to is in fact warfare. But I'm here to tell you it was. And that's the reason so many people are just emotionally screwed up because of what's happened. So many people are screwed right up. So many people are traumatized because of what's happened. There's a whole generation of little kids that were subjected to a couple of years right at the formative time of their life, right when they're learning what's what and how to think and what things are, that were subjected to that whole bullshit scenario and that were not allowed to develop properly. That's going to come back on us. That is going to come back on us later. You just watch and see. It will. You can't have a generation of children messed with in that way and not have it come back on you. It's going to come back on us. In various ways. There's so many things that were done that were just rotten and dirty and underhanded. And, we're still feeling the effects of it. After World War II, it took decades for things to get back to any sense of normal again. It gradually got better. It was better in the early 50s than it was in the late 40s. It was better in the 60s than it was in the 50s. It was better in the 70s than it was in the 60s, and so on. And but even in the 1980s, into the 1980s, we were experiencing some of the after effects of World War II. And it really wasn't until the 1990s that things kind of sort of normalized again. And I grew up in the 70s. I was born in 1968. I was a kid, late 60s, early 70s, right through. I was a teenager. I was 12 years old in 1980, so I was a teenager and a young man in the 1980s. And I remember even then, in certain ways, we were still experiencing the effects of World War II. It hadn't completely gone away. And, with any kind of warfare, this is what happens. The effects last a long time after the war is over. And in our case, the war isn't over. This war that was waged against us in 2020, it's not over. What that was is it was the first battle. And truth be told, we lost. The powers that be chose to back off because they had accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. They had figured out how many would comply, how many wouldn't. They had figured they'd tested things to see how far they could push before people started to push back. They had identified people like myself who didn't comply. They know who we are, so they know who they have to specifically put through the ringer next time around. They know who the first ones are they're going to round up and take the prisoner to prison camps or whatever, if that's what they decide to do this next go around. They might, it's hard to say. But they're definitely going to be harassing people like me and targeting people like me in particular. They're going to make damn sure to censor people like me. And they're going to make damn sure to do everything they can to isolate people like me and to punish people like me and to keep people like me down, because I was a pain in the ass to them the first time around. And there's a bunch of us that have now been identified as a problem. So they're going to pay extra attention to us. They've also identified who the sheep are. They've identified who will just go along to get along. And they're going to lean on them in a different way. They're going to lean on them in a totally different way, because they know that these people will submit to tyranny fairly easily. And see, this is the thing. So they've identified who's who by percentage and individually. They figured out how far they can push before they get pushed back. They figured out a lot of things. And they're just going to gradually push a little more and a little more. And, we need to be aware of that, because awareness is the first step to not getting caught up in that and to not allowing them to do what they're doing. Because it's not good for us. It really isn't. Ask yourself, was what happened in 2020 right through 2022 into 2023, was any of that good for you? Are you better off for any of that? Really, you need to think about that, are you? Are you any better off for that? How much did your life improve while that was going on? I'll bet it didn't. In fact, I'll bet you lost ground. Look at us now. Look at the money we're paying for food and for fuel and everything else. Can all be tied back to that. This is war. We are at war. Make no mistake about it. They haven't openly said it's war. They haven't officially declared war on us. And so because we're used to that, because we're used, for example, like in World War II, the different countries declared war on each other, where they actually went on the radio, the leaders of the countries, and said, the so-and-so of such and such, the Democratic Republic of so-and-so, or whatever it is, hereby declares war on, and then they went through that. That hasn't happened in this case. It hasn't been that straightforward. And it's not a war that's been fought with bullets and tanks and bombs, like we tend to think of warfare. But make no mistake, it is warfare. And it's warfare of the very worst and the most insidious kind. And we don't deserve it. This should not be happening to us. It shouldn't be happening to me. It shouldn't be happening to you. But it is. See, one of the things I've always hated about bullies is a bully will come into your life uninvited and put you in a position where you either have to be a victim, you either have to agree to be a victim, or you have to aggress against the bully. And if you aggress against the bully, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be seen as the bad guy. And you're going to be punished. You're the one that the authorities are going to target to be punished, because they'll say, well, you escalated it. You should have just agreed to be the bully's victim rather than to escalate it like you did. So you're the problem, not the bully. That's what the authorities tend to say. See, that's the thing about a bully. A bully will do that to you. You'll be merrily going along about your business, not bothering anybody, and some dirty, rotten bully will come into your life and do that to you and put you in that position where you either have to choose to be a victim of this bully, or you have to choose to fight back, in which case you're choosing then to be seen as a criminal and as the problem, by the authorities. That's the position we've been put in by the globalists. We were just going about our business, and they came and they fucked with us. And they're still fucking with us. And, you can either agree to be a victim, or you can fight back, in which case you will be identified as a troublemaker and as a problem. It's not much of a choice, is it? I still say it's better to fight back, though. I really do. I'll be identified as a troublemaker and a problem. I'm good with that. Won't be the first time. I'll fight back. I have fought back, and I will fight back. And my advice to everybody is to do the same, because the result of not fighting back is worse. As undesirable as the result of fighting back is, and it is undesirable, you will be punished. You will suffer. But the results of not fighting back are worse. You don't want that. You may think it's not so bad, but once you experience it, you'll realize, and you'll wish you had fought back, but it'll be too late. Anyway, that's it. Fight back. Don't let the bastards win. Well, there's a Latin phrase that means that. Don't let the bastards win. I can't remember it now, but it's like a Latin phrase. Anyway, and the translation of it is, don't let the bastards win. Well, don't let the bastards win. That's all. We'll talk to you later. Hey, there's Rocky. Oh, look, Rocky's sleeping up there. He's pretty cute, isn't he? All right. Bye for now.